The roar of the crowd, the thrill of competition. Sometimes it all ends in an instant. For these athletes, the game they loved became their final stage. In this chilling look at those who died before their fans, we uncover stories of talent cut short in the fine line between glory and tragedy. Deaths that shook the sports world and reshaped safety forever. It was June 21st, 2008. On that summer day at the Englishtown Raceway Park in New Jersey, thousands of fans gathered, buzzing with excitement and anticipation. Drag racing was more than just a sport to these fans. It was a test of speed, skill, and bravery. Among the roaring engines and burning rubber stood Scott Kalitta, a veteran driver with a reputation as fierce as his blazing top-fuel dragster. That day at Englishtown, Scott was preparing for what was supposed to be a routine qualifying run. The weather was clear, the track freshly prepared, and his team worked meticulously to ensure the dragster was in peak condition. Fans watched eagerly as the familiar silhouette of Kalitta's dragster rolled to the starting line. There was a quiet tension in the air, the kind that always comes just before a powerful machine unleashes its fury. As the green light flashed, Scott slammed the throttle and the dragster roared down the quarter-mile track. Everything seemed normal at first, but then just a few seconds into the run, disaster struck. Approaching the finish line at over 300 miles per hour, the engine suddenly exploded. A violent blast ripped through the dragster, sending metal fragments flying in every direction. The massive force shattered the rear tires, causing Scott to lose control. His car swerved violently from side to side, leaving thick black smoke trailing behind. The crowd gasped, some freezing in disbelief as the dragster began to spin out of control. Scott fought desperately to keep the vehicle steady, but at those incredible speeds, there was little a human could do. The dragster careened off the track and smashed through the guardrail, crashing into the surrounding barrier with a catastrophic impact. Flames erupted instantly, engulfing the car in a fiery inferno. Track emergency crews raced to the scene, battling the blaze and attempting to reach Scott trapped inside. The silence that fell over the crowd was deafening, broken only by the crackle of the fire and the wail of sirens. Despite the quick response, the injuries Scott sustained were severe and ultimately fatal. The engines and safety gear designed to protect drivers could not withstand the violent force of that explosion and crash. Scott Kalitta, a man who had lived his life chasing speed and victory, was gone in an instant. After the crash, people didn't just ask how the engine failed. They started thinking about how dangerous drag racing really is. The sport is all about going faster and faster. But Scott's accident showed that there are limits that can't be beaten. His final race wasn't just a terrible accident. It was a moment that made everyone realize even the best drivers aren't invincible. Scott's memory changed from just being about winning races to reminding everyone that behind every fast car is a person facing real danger every time they race. It was July 19th, 1982 in Rome, Italy. Vladimir Smirnov, a 28-year-old Soviet fencing star, was competing in the World Championships. The arena buzzed with excitement as spectators gathered to watch the world's best fencers. Smirnov, the reigning Olympic gold medalist in foil, faced West German Matthias Baer in what should have been a routine match between two elite competitors. No one could have imagined that within moments a freak accident would forever change the sport of fencing. Born in Rubishna, Ukraine, Smirnov had risen to become the Soviet Union's premier fencer. Standing 6'1" in and weighing 172 pounds, he combined power with exceptional technique. His journey to the top culminated at the 1980 Moscow Olympics, where he captured gold in the individual foil competition, silver in the team foil, and bronze in the team épée events. By 1981, he had added a world championship to his impressive collection of medals. That fateful day in Rome, Smirnov stepped onto the beast wearing his standard protective gear, a mask made of steel mesh, a chest protector, and his white fencing uniform. The match began like countless others, with the two champions exchanging attacks and parries, their movements precise and calculated. Suddenly, during an intense exchange, both fencers attacked simultaneously, attempting to establish what's known in fencing as the right of way. Smirnov tried to block Baer's blade with an upward parry, but Baer avoided it. As they collided, Bear's foil blade snapped upon impact with Smirnov's chest protector. The broken blade, now jagged and sharp, continued its forward momentum with Bear's lunge. It pierced through Smirnov's mask, penetrated his eye socket, and drove deep into his brain. The arena fell silent as Smirnov collapsed onto the beast. Medical staff rushed to his aid, while horrified spectators and fellow competitors looked on in disbelief. Bear stood frozen, devastated by what had just occurred. This wasn't just a sporting accident, it was a catastrophe that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Smirnov was immediately rushed to a nearby hospital where surgeons worked desperately to save him. The broken blade had caused severe damage to his brain. Despite being placed on life support, doctors soon determined he had no brain reflexes. For 9 agonizing days, Smirnov remained on life support while the fencing world prayed for a miracle. On July 28, 1982, Vladimir Smirnov was pronounced dead. The news sent shockwaves through the international sports community. The Soviet Union had lost one of its greatest champions, and the fencing world had experienced its most tragic moment. Bear, though absolved of any wrongdoing, carried the emotional burden of the accident. He left fencing in the aftermath, but eventually returned, winning silver at the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. Later, he became the head of Germany's National Fencing Training Center, dedicating himself to improving the sport. Smirnov's death became a watershed moment for fencing safety. The International Fencing Federation immediately began reviewing equipment standards. The carbon steel blades that had been standard were replaced with maraging steel, which is far less likely to snap. Masks were reinforced with stronger materials, and uniforms were upgraded to include Kevlar, or high-strength nylon. The punch test for masks was introduced, requiring them to withstand 12 kilograms of force. A 5-year study later revealed that these changes had made fencing significantly safer than many popular sports. The research found injury rates 50 times greater in soccer than in fencing. In the last 100 years, there have been no reported deaths in US fencing and worldwide since Smirnov. Only 7 confirmed fatalities in competition or practice. Today, fencing is considered one of the safest competitive sports, largely due to the changes implemented after Smirnov's death. His tragic passing, while devastating, ultimately saved countless lives through the safety improvements it prompted. Vladimir Smirnov's legacy lives on, not only in the medals he won and the skill he displayed, but in the safer sport fencing has become. In death, as in life, he changed the face of the sport he loved. A final, unintended contribution from a true champion. It was March 24, 2018 at the Deltaplex Arena in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The G-League's Grand Rapids Drive were playing their final regular season game against the Long Island Nets with a playoff spot on the line. Zeke Upshaw, a 26-year-old shooting guard, was having a solid night with 11 points in 29 minutes. With just 47 seconds remaining and his team leading 100-97, no one could have predicted the tragedy about to unfold. Along the baseline, away from the ball, Upshaw suddenly dropped face down to the court, his palms turned upward, his body motionless. For 6 crucial seconds, no one seemed to notice. Then one opposing player reacted, followed by another, until finally the referee's whistle stopped play. The crowd of nearly 2,000 fans fell silent, watching as a young man's life began slipping away. Before that moment, Upshaw had been living his basketball dream. After playing at Illinois State and then as a graduate transfer at Hofstra, he had worked his way into professional basketball. His three-point shooting percentage of 40.9% that season showed promise for a potential NBA Summer League invitation. Even if the NBA didn't call, there was talk of opportunities in Europe's top leagues. What happened next would expose a tragic failure in emergency response. Medical staff huddled around him, but didn't check his pulse. No one turned him over. No one appeared to check if he was breathing. 2 minutes passed before EMTs walked, not rushed onto the court with a stretcher. 7 critical minutes went by before CPR began in the ambulance. A defibrillator visible on the stretcher was never used. About 1,600 m away in Henderson, Nevada, Upshaw's mother, Jewel, watched the horror unfold on a Facebook stream. His girlfriend, Julia Turner, whom everyone called his fiancée because he planned to propose after the season, screamed on the phone to Jewel as they watched helplessly. Messages scrolled by on Facebook, "Prayers for Zeke," "Say a prayer for Zeke." The investigation revealed disturbing details. 9 months before his death, Upshaw had collapsed at a Las Vegas gym. Blood tests showed elevated troponin, a protein released when the heart is damaged. Despite this warning sign, he was cleared to play after an overnight hospital stay. His discharge papers simply stated, "You may resume your normal activities when you are feeling back to normal." 40 minutes after his collapse, Upshaw's heart finally restarted at the hospital, but it was too late. 2 days later, on March 26th, his mother made made the heartbreaking decision to disconnect life support. The autopsy revealed he had suffered from heart disease that went undetected despite 3 different heart screenings in the previous 16 months. His funeral drew over 1,000 people to Chicago's South Side. An alderman spoke, as did former US Secretary of Education Ari Duncan. Upshaw was laid to rest at the legendary Oakwood Cemetery near Jesse Owens's grave, a final tribute to a young man who had been a success story raised by a single mother and earning his way to professional basketball. Zeke Upshaw's death led to significant changes in the G League's medical protocols. His mother created the Zeke Upshaw Foundation to educate schools and athletic organizations about sudden cardiac arrest. Her message became simple but crucial. When someone collapses, assume it's a heart issue. First, she receives monthly notifications about similar incidents, each one reminding her of that terrible night. The tragedy of Zeke Upshaw wasn't just about a promising athlete taken too soon. It was about systemic failures in emergency response and medical screening. His death exposed how those first few minutes in a cardiac emergency can mean the difference between life and death. While other athletes have been saved from similar collapses since then, Upshaw's story remains a sobering reminder of why proper medical protocols matter. His legacy lives on through the foundation that bears his name, working to ensure that when the next athlete collapses, someone will know exactly what to do. It was October 14th, 2014. It started as a regular day for 23-year-old Peter Bakangzala. A talented midfielder for Bethlehem Venlang, Peter was known for his discipline, hard work, and love for football. As a rising star in the Mizoram Premier League, he had big dreams of playing at the national level. But no one could have imagined that his celebration after scoring a goal would take a devastating turn. Born in Mizoram, one of India's most football-passionate regions, Peter grew up idolizing players far removed from his world. He had worked his way through local leagues, surviving on minimal gear and borrowed cleats, but his speed, control, and midfield vision couldn't be ignored. Eventually, he joined Bethlehem Venlang in the Mizoram Premier League, a small but competitive circuit that offered Peter the structure and recognition he'd long hoped for. That day, Peter's team was up against Chunmari West FC in an important match at Lamuel Stadium in Aisol, India. In the 62nd minute, with the score tied, he saw his chance. Under the fading afternoon sun, Peter executed a well-timed shot, scoring an equaliser for his team. The crowd erupted in cheers as the ball struck the back of the net. Overcome with excitement, Peter decided to celebrate in a way he had long admired by attempting a somersault, just like his football idols Kaká and Ronaldo. His teammates trailed behind as Peter sprinted toward the sideline, already airborne in mid-celebration. Peter had practiced the move before, but this time things went horribly wrong. In a single second, triumph turned to horror. As he flipped into the air, he miscalculated his landing. Instead of a smooth finish, he came down headfirst, his neck bending at a sickening angle. The stadium's atmosphere changed in an instant. His teammates, who had been celebrating with him, quickly realized something was wrong. Their joy turned to panic as they rushed to his side, signaling for medical help. Peter was in pain and unable to move. Medical staff rushed in, stabilizing his neck and signaling for a stretcher. The stadium fell silent, the earlier applause replaced by uncertainty. He was carefully carried off the field and taken to Aisol Civil Hospital. Doctors performed a CT scan and found that his spinal cord had suffered severe damage at the neck, an injury so critical that even immediate surgery offered little hope. It was a devastating diagnosis, and they immediately began efforts to stabilize him. Despite their best attempts, Peter's condition worsened. He was moved to the intensive care unit, and his teammates, family, and friends held on to hope. For 5 days, doctors worked tirelessly to save him. But on October 19, 2014, Peter Bakangzala passed away. His club, Bethlehem Venlang, was devastated. To honor him, they announced that his jersey number 21 would be retired. The Mizoram Premier League released a statement mourning his loss, calling it a heartbreaking day for football in the region. Peter was a dedicated midfielder known for his ability to break up attacks and support his team. His coach, Danny Elman Mawia, spoke about his character, saying, "Peter was well-mannered and disciplined on and off the pitch. Players like him are rare." His passing also sparked conversations about the risks of acrobatic goal celebrations. While these moves are common in football, few had ever imagined that a routine celebration could lead to such a tragedy. It was December 2nd, 2005 on Oahu's North Shore, Hawaii. Malik Joyu, a 25-year-old Tahitian surfer known as Petite Prince, paddled out at the legendary Banzai pipeline. The waves were breaking at 8 feet, modest by pipeline standards, but still powerful enough to demand respect. The morning was beautiful with clear skies and perfect conditions that had drawn dozens of the world's best surfers into the lineup. No one could have imagined that within hours the surfing world would be mourning the loss of one of its most fearless big wave riders. Born in Maria, French Polynesia, Ju had surfing in his blood. He began riding waves at just 8 years old, quickly developing a reputation for his fearlessness in heavy surf. Standing 5'7" in and weighing 150 pounds, Ju wasn't physically imposing, but his courage was immeasurable. By his early 20s, he had established himself as one of the premier surfers at Tiao, Tahiti's infamous wave, known for its thick, hollow barrels breaking over a shallow reef. In 2003, Joy cemented his place in surfing history by winning the Bebong XXL Tube of the Year award for an impossible barrel at Pipeline. The following year, he appeared on the cover of Surfer magazine riding a monstrous wave at Teahupu, an image that became iconic in the surfing community. Despite his growing fame, Malik remained humble and kind, known for his infectious smile and generous spirit. That fateful December morning, Ju was among approximately 60 surfers vying for waves at Pipeline. The spot is notorious for its dangerous conditions, powerful waves that break over a shallow, razor-sharp coral reef just feet below the surface. For surfers, the reward of riding Pipeline's perfect barrels comes with tremendous risk. Around 10:30 a.m., paddled for a wave that photographer Bruno Lemos described as not even that big for him. As Zu dropped in, something went wrong. The wave's thick lip came crashing down directly on top of him, driving him deep underwater. The force was so violent that it snapped his surfboard in half and tore the leash from his ankle. When Joyo failed to surface, panic spread through the lineup. Surfers began searching frantically, diving underwater between sets to look for their friend. Lifeguards joined the search, but the powerful currents and poor visibility made it nearly impossible to find him. Approximately 10 minutes later, surfers spotted body floating in a nearby break. They quickly paddled him to shore where lifeguards attempted CPR, but it was too late. Malik Zo was pronounced dead on the beach, becoming the 11th known fatality at Pipeline. As word spread, dozens of surfers paddled to shore and formed a circle on the beach, holding hands in prayer. The surfing community, known for its tight-knit nature, was devastated by the loss of such a beloved figure. Captain Bodto van der Leen of the Ocean Safety Division later told reporters he was a very experienced big wave surfer, highlighting the sobering reality that even the most skilled athletes aren't immune to the ocean's power. Yu's death sent shockwaves through the surfing world. Coming just months before the Pipeline Masters, the sport's most prestigious competition, many surfers competed with heavy hearts, dedicating their performances to their fallen friend. Malik Joyu's legacy lives on in the surfing community. He is remembered not just for his extraordinary courage in massive waves, but for his humility and joy. His approach to surfing, fearless yet respectful of the ocean's power, continues to inspire a new generation of big wave surfers. Though his life was cut tragically short, his impact on the sport remains immeasurable. It was May 6, 2016 at the Dynamo Stadium in Bucharest, Romania. The fans called it the hole in the ground, and on this evening, it would become the site of one of football's most preventable tragedies. Patrick Ang, a 26-year-old midfielder from Cameroon, had just come on as a substitute for Dynamo Bucharest in the 70th minute against Viitorul. The score was tied 3-3, and Ang was eager to make an impact. 7 minutes after stepping onto the pitch, Ekang was jogging near the centre circle when he suddenly collapsed. There was no contact, no warning. He simply fell backwards, his knees buckling beneath him. The stadium fell silent as players frantically waved for medical assistance. His teammate Sergiu Hanca reached him first. Hearing what he described as something like the respiration of a pig, the sound of hypoxic gasping as Ang's brain starved of oxygen. Before that moment, Ang had fought his way through European football's lower ranks, starting in Cameroon on dusty pitches in Yei, where his mother, a preacher, would sometimes cheer him on from the sidelines. He had played in France, Switzerland and Spain before landing in Romania. Dynamo was supposed to be his chance to rebuild his career, earning around $5,000 per month. Just weeks earlier, he had scored his first goal for the club in a Romanian Cup semi-final against their rivals, Steaua Bucharest. What happened next would shock the football world. The ambulance crew, later investigated for negligence, took nearly 3 minutes to reach Ang. The defibrillator they carried had a dead battery. Each minute that passed reduced his survival chances by 7%. Crystal Palace fan Stephen Carpenter, visiting as a football tourist, watched in disbelief as medical staff put aside the distinctive red defibrillator case, thinking it wasn't that serious. By the time he reached Floraska Hospital, just blocks from the stadium, it was too late. At 11:25 p.m., after showing no electrical activity in his heart for 5 full minutes, doctors pronounced him dead from cardiac arrest. The entire incident had been captured on television, leaving viewers and teammates in shock. The investigation revealed a cascade of failures. The private ambulance service, Pulse, had 14 out of 15 vehicles carrying dead defibrillator batteries. Phone calls intercepted by authorities caught staff discussing how to cover up their negligence. The doctor, Elena Mihila Duda, was later given an 18-month suspended jail sentence and ordered to pay $227,000 in damages. She became the face of a systemic failure that cost a young athlete his life. A king left behind a pregnant wife, Natalie, and another child. His death echoed tragically with Cameroon's football history. In 2003, Marc Vivien Foe had died similarly during a Confederations Cup match. Dynamo Bucharest retired Ang's number 14 jersey, but the real tribute came in the form of stricter medical regulations in Romanian football. The aftermath revealed more painful truths. His January 2016 medical screening had missed any heart abnormalities, though experts later noted that such conditions are notoriously difficult to detect. His autopsy report was criticized by international medical experts for claiming he had 3 rare heart conditions simultaneously, something nearly impossible. Back in Yaoundé, Arkan's friends hung a banner on the incomplete house he had been building. "A lion does not die. He sleeps. Rest in peace." His story became a grim reminder of how critical proper medical care is in professional sports. As his friend Khalif Nogo would later say, he died because people didn't do their jobs. In the end, Patrick Ekang's death wasn't just about a footballer who died too young. It was about a system that failed him and the changes his death forced upon the sport.